What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about some of the biggest mistakes that wide receivers will make versus press coverage. So we're going to talk about how you guys can beat DBs who are bigger than you, more physical than you, patient DBs, and also DBs who are faster than you. Let's get started. So fellas, when you're facing a DB in press coverage who is very patient, generally patient DBs obviously have great feet, they have great technique when it comes to footwork, but they are very, very disciplined with their eyes. And eye discipline comes down to not letting a DB's eyes get high. A lot of times undisciplined beginner DBs are looking at our head and shoulders as receivers, and I hear a lot of receiver coaches say, oh, you got to throw a head and shoulder fake. That's not where a DB's looking, guys. That DB is keyed in on your hips. So what we have to do is we can't sell my releases with my head, we got to sell with my hips. So what I want you guys to think about in any release that you do, you should almost think your belly button is trying to go to the sideline without your feet and your knee opening up. So let's use a simple jab release, right? So let's say I'm here, I got a DB who's head up, keyed in right on my hips. We know this isn't going to get him because my hips aren't doing anything, right? We know that this is probably what's going to get him. Your belly button's going towards the sideline, hips are going this way. Think of it like this, your head wants to stay even with your knee. Generally when that happens, your hips go with the cut. But this is where receivers make the mistake. They do this move and they open up too much. And so when your toes open up like this, your knees open up like this, you're not going to be able to get out fast and push. So guys, you got to almost separate the upper body from the lower body. My toes always want to stay forward, but the upper body from hips up is turning in this direction to get that DB to bite, because to get a patient DB to move, you got to sell with your hips. Now fellas, before we get into the rest of this video, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback watching this and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches this offseason, we are traveling out to 15 different cities across the entire country for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camps. We are already starting to take signups, you guys, and all of our camps are starting to fill up very, very quickly. So make sure if you guys want to attend a camp, you take advantage of the fact that we have available spots now. All of our camps will sell out, you guys. So I want you guys to be there if you are planning on attending. So make sure you go to that very first link in the description below, and that is where you can sign up. Our next camp is going to be in San Francisco, California, Orlando, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona. Then we'll be heading out to Columbia, South Carolina. After that, we'll be going to Seattle, Washington, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado, Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, Salt Lake City, Utah, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California. So guys, you want to attend, very first link in that description below. We'd love to have you there. Now fellas, the next mistake that I want to go over versus press coverage that receivers make is generally versus bigger physical guys, more specifically like a linebacker or a safety who's rolled down on a slot receiver. So let's say, for example, I'm a receiver, and this orange cone represents like a linebacker. Let's say he's like 5 yards away, and maybe I got to run like a 10-yard corner route, right? So there's a couple things that receivers will screw up on versus this look, is that they'll have this look with the guy 5 yards away, and because he's bigger, because he's more physical, guys are afraid of the contact. And I get it, I understand, but they'll just try to run away. That's exactly what they want you to do. His whole job, even when he's in zone coverage, is just to get hands and reroute us to screw up the timing with the quarterback. So if you try to run around him, all he's going to do is get hands and shove you to that sideline, and your route's going to look like this when it should be just straight on. Now, here's the other mistake, because everybody knows when I got this look, what am I always preaching about? If you're familiar with our videos, is that I want you to close the space, attack his toes, give him a move, and then go up into your route. Now, here's where guys go wrong. They get too close, right? If this guy's bigger than us, think of it like you're boxing him. You got a guy who's got really long arms and he's strong and he's got knockout power. I'm not trying to be in his range and fight from there, because I'm going to get diced up, you guys. What I want to do is I want to stay out of his range, get into his range, and then get back out of his range. That's how I want to fight the guy. So that's essentially what you want to do versus this type of coverage look. When I close the space with him, I don't want to get too close. I want to get just inside of his range to where if he's going to get hands, he's got to reach for me and leave his base, which is his strong point. So I want to be about there, maybe about a half a yard away, give my move, and then immediately after the move, I don't want to let him touch me. That's when I'm afraid of the contact, if you will, but I'm dipping my shoulder to get back up into my route. So if you could focus on those two things versus that type of look, you will be more successful out of the slot, and hell, even out of the outside versus a bigger physical DB. All right, fellas, so the next mistake that wide receivers make versus press is that they're not making their releases look the same. So we're going to use a release called a slide release, and that's going to kind of give you an idea of what I mean by making your releases look the same. The thing that you got to understand about press releases, press coverage, there's a million different ways that you could beat press. And a lot of receivers do a lot of different things. You see some commonalities in what they do, especially at the NFL level, college level, with really top tier guys, but they all kind of have a different way of doing things. It's more so about conceptually naturally what you're doing rather than the specific release that you use. If you got 5 releases that you're comfortable with, that you're good with, that's plenty and that's all you need to know. I try to give you guys as much information as possible on this channel, but it's kind of on you as a receiver to take that info, okay, I like that, I'm not that comfortable with that, and figure out what release like package you want to use. But the key is to make it look the same. That's why we're discussing this. So if I have a guy, like let's say this DB is like inside shade, and let's say I want to run a fade, a release I could use is something called the slide and go release, where I come off the ball, I jab, I slide, take off and go. Now, great release to use. You could use that on out routes, corners, because it's fast enough, right? Let's say I got to run a slant. The key routes to make look the same, if we're keeping it very, very simple, are your slant routes and your fade routes, right? You want your slant to look like a fade. You want every route to look like a fade at a certain point, but the release is more important when it's a slant or a quicker route, right? So what you could do is a slide crossover. DB has seen the slide before. Maybe you did it when we were doing a run play to the other side of the field and you just want to set him up a little bit. So we come off, jab, slide, same idea, same speed, same angle, same everything, left, right, to make him think we're going fade and then cut back underneath on a slant. So if you could pair the stuff that you're doing together, you will be more successful off the line of scrimmage versus patient and more talented DBs. Now, the next mistake guys will make versus press is not having a plan with their hands. We can't make a press coverage video without talking about hand technique and what you should do. Now, like I said, there are many ways to beat a DB's hands, right? Like you could come off and just chop, like you could do a swat dip, you could do a swat shoot. I'm not a fan of a swat swim just because you expose your rib cage and could get popped. So any of those could work. The thing that you have to do is keep it very, very simple when it comes to your hands versus press. So like, let's talk about the look we have right now. We got inside shade press. Let's say I want to run a corner route versus inside shade press. I know for a fact I'm taking an outside release here. So I'm not thinking about, should I swat and dip? Should I swat here? Whatever one you're comfortable with, whether even it's just a chop down. You just got to know that the only hand of the DB that will prevent me from releasing where I want to release, because his goal in press, get hands, disrupt timing with the quarterback, and reroute you to disrupt spacing on the play. That's why he's playing press, you guys. Now, if I know the only hand that could prevent that is his outside hand, so in this case, it would be his left hand. This hand, if he only gets hands here, you're off press, you did your job. Now it's just mid route and top of the route that you got to worry about. But this is the hand that will keep us at the line. That's me getting jammed, if you will, right? So if my thought process is, I'm going to set him up with my feet, I'm going to beat his outside hand. So I'm here, here, here. And all I'm keyed in on is that outside hand, so I know where to swat and get off the ball. So if you just know which hand to beat, can keep it simple off the line, you'll be way more successful with your hand technique versus press.